Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions, the mystery of the Isdal Woman, Europe's most puzzling Jane Doe. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. On November 29, 1970, a family hiking in the Isdalen Valley near Bergen, Norway found a badly burned body. The woman had no identification. Every label had been removed from her clothing. In 2 suitcases found at the Bergen train station, investigators found wigs, 12 different identities, forged documents, currencies from multiple countries, and notes in a cipher that has never been fully decoded. She had stayed in hotels under different names throughout Europe for months, and hotel staff remembered her as nervous, often asking if any men had been asking for her. 54 years later, her identity remains officially unknown. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the world of history's most enduring unsolved crimes, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Amateur investigation of cold cases has undergone a revolution in the digital age. What once required physical access to evidence rooms, courthouse archives, and retired detectives now requires, in many cases, only an internet connection and a willingness to spend several hundred hours reading. Online communities dedicated to specific cases have grown to tens of thousands of members, coordinating the analysis of evidence across continents and time zones, cross-referencing witness accounts, and applying analytical frameworks drawn from criminology, forensic accounting, and intelligence analysis. This democratization of investigation has produced real results. Amateur researchers have identified previously overlooked evidence in multiple high-profile cases. Citizen DNA investigations have generated viable leads that professional investigators subsequently pursued. Open-source intelligence techniques, originally developed for geopolitical analysis, have been applied to cold cases with unexpected success, identifying locations from historical photographs, tracking financial transactions through public records, and mapping suspect movements through odd documents. But amateur investigation has also produced harm. Innocent people have been named online as suspects by communities whose enthusiasm outran their evidence. Families of victims have been subjected to intrusive and sometimes harassing contact from self-appointed investigators. Evidence has been disturbed by unauthorized site visits. The power of collective human intelligence, when applied to genuine mystery, is remarkable. The question is whether it can be channeled in ways that help rather than harm the living people caught in the blast radius of historical crimes. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the Isdal Woman, Europe's most puzzling Jane Doe, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Norwegian National Criminal Investigation Service concluded the death was suicide, but the investigation was classified for 50 years. When files were released, they revealed Norwegian Security Police, PSD, had been involved from an early stage, unusual for a routine suicide. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the woman had stayed in 14 hotels in at least 5 Norwegian cities over preceding weeks, registering under 8 different aliases. Receipts showed extensive European travel. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this. And that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The FBI and Interpol were both involved in identification attempts. This level of international involvement is unusual for an apparent domestic suicide. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, a 2017 analysis of tooth enamel isotopes placed her origin in a Central European language area, possibly German or French-speaking. Her DNA profile has been extracted. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of NRK Radio's 2017 podcast generated new witness accounts, including a former intelligence contact who implied she was an East German or Soviet operative. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. The encoded notes found in her belongings were analyzed by Norwegian cryptologists. Some notations appeared to be a travel log or operational record. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Isdal Woman, Europe's most puzzling Jane Doe. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the Isdal Woman was a foreign intelligence operative, possibly East German or Soviet, who was killed or died when her cover was compromised. The behavior pattern, multiple identities, forged documents, and PSD involvement are consistent with intelligence operations. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the Isdal Woman was an independent criminal, smuggler, or fraudster who traveled Europe under assumed identities for financial reasons. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the Isdal woman was a Central European woman who, for personal reasons unrelated to espionage, constructed an elaborate false identity system. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree, that is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Isdal woman, Europe's most puzzling Jane Doe, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes the 2017 isotope analysis, placing her origin in Central Europe, is the most concrete forensic evidence. Significantly narrowing geographic origin, this evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the classified status of the investigation for 50 years, and PSD involvement from the beginning provides circumstantial evidence of an intelligence dimension. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed hotel staff descriptions of a nervous woman asking whether anyone was looking for her suggest she believed she was being followed. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Isdal woman, Europe's most puzzling Jane Doe. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The Isdal woman case remains officially open in Norway. Her DNA profile is held by Norwegian authorities and submitted to international missing persons databases. She is buried in Bergen cemetery under the inscription "Unknown Woman," and that inscription remains accurate today. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made, new analyses are being published, new voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Isdal Woman, Europe's most puzzling Jane Doe, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Isdal Woman ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.